The TeachPitch podcast. We are very excited to be launching a series of interviews for TeachPitch, a global community of 50,000 subscribers from over 205 countries to date. And for these interviews, we have selected a number of subscribers who have achieved great things. And by great, I mean amazing. Think of former presidents, entrepreneurs, people who've built hospitals, huge non-profit organizations, successful journalists, doctors, etc. And what all our guests have in common is that despite their great success, they've encountered many enormous challenges. So what were these challenges and how did they overcome them? That's what we're going to be talking about here. My name is Aldo de Pap and I'm massively looking forward and very grateful you can join us on this journey. So sit back, relax and download the podcast here.
When the teacher came in, we had to get up, we had to sit down, we had to do everything what we are told and not to question authority. And I think the best thing children can do is question authority rather than blindly adhere to authority.
You have books and then you have books with a big capital B. As a reader, you can be touched by a book for many reasons. Its intention, its storyline, its plot, the message it has for the world, and or fall in love with one or all of its main characters. Often just one of these components is already enough to make it a big success, but very rarely have I read one, or better said, two books that have it all. The Choice and the Gift, written by the renowned psychologist Dr. Edith Eger, surpassed any expectation I had, and left me in admiration, awe, and with a lot of deep questions about us human beings. By any standard, I can say that both works are absolutely monumental reads, undoubtedly here to stay. Dr. Edith Eger shares with us the story of surviving the most horrific atrocities in Auschwitz. Her ordeal as a 16-year-old Jewish girl growing up in Hungary during the Second World War is beyond anything you can imagine. With both her parents killed in the gas chambers, having undergone the torture, the humiliation, and many systemic attempts to be killed, Edith and her sister, Magda, miraculously make it out alive of this death camp. Step by step, Dr. Eger tries to rebuild her life in post-war Hungary, but not even 5 years after the war, she's again led in incredibly difficult circumstances as the Russians seize power in the east of Europe. Dr. Eger, her husband Bela, and daughter Mariam seek refuge in the United States, where they need to start over their entire life, with not a penny to their name and only the motivation to build something new. Both books by Dr. Eger are about resilience, loss, bereavement, bravery, anger, forgiveness, but most of all about the unique power given to all of us that we can always make a choice. We have the capacity to hate and the capacity to love. Which one we reach for, Dr. Eger states, is up to us. When reading the incredible story of Dr. Edith Eger, you are moved beyond belief. It is a story that overwhelms you not only because of what happened to her, but also how you will be transformed when reading them. You cannot carry on as normal after you've read the books of Dr. Eger. I will be forever changed by Dr. Eger's story, says the mighty Oprah Winfrey, and who am I to disagree? Now, this podcast program is all about challenges and how great people have overcome adversity and setbacks and went on to achieve great things. I, for one, cannot come up with a guest more befitting for our podcast, or, as a journalist for the New York Times describes it, I can't imagine a more important message for modern times. Eger's book is a triumph and should be read by all who care about both their inner freedom and the future of humanity. Without a doubt, Dr. Eger and her story personify everything we stand for. It is therefore my distinct honor to bring to you this interview with her on our 7th birthday and UNESCO's World Teachers' Day. Dr. Eger, I am absolutely filled with gratitude and humility that you could make some time available to talk to me. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much. I'm so looking forward to have a dialogue with you. And I know our time is very limited, and I will do anything in my power to give people an opportunity to look at their own lives and look at COVID as time out, just like in a game, that they can regroup and redecide that we don't have time to complain, but we want to move ahead and have a new beginning. And that's what's happening.
That's incredible, and thank you for sharing that. And yeah, really, when reading your story through The Choice and the Gift, so many came at me as a reader. So I have thousands of questions, which I'm not going to be able to ask all of them. But one of the things that struck me the most and that made me pause is how you were able, throughout the book, even in the most difficult and dire circumstances, to empathize and to see something of humanity in someone else, even though these people far from deserved it, I guess. And that's something that really made me stop in my tracks and made me think, like, how is this possible? And yeah, I believe in a previous interview it was also mentioned as a moral center. You were able to keep a moral center. And where did that come from?
I think it comes most of all that I was supposed to be born to be a son after 2 girls, but I came along as the third daughter, and therefore I spent a lot of time alone because my 2 sisters were teasing me that I am ugly and I'm never going to find a husband. And my mother also looked at me very seriously and said, "I'm glad you have brains because you have no looks." I think it's important for every one of you to look at the messages that you may be still carrying with you and realizing that I don't have time to be angry at my mother, because that's exactly what happened. I did become a very erudite teenager, and I actually had my own book club. I read the interpretation of dreams by Freud. And so you see, I don't have time to really blame. And I think it's important for people to know that while you blame, you're still a child. Children blame. If you ask a child, why do you do that? They would say, because I feel like it. Now, as an adult, you still feel like it, because God gave us temptation. So it's very important that you still feel like it, but you don't have to act upon it. So the question is, where does compassion come from? And what is happening now when I know that many people are at the border coming from different countries? There is no going back. So what can we do to really have in ourselves the desire to do everything in our power to see people being fed, and that we can really welcome the immigrants? Because you know that little Jew called Albert Einstein came to America, and if he wouldn't have come to America, our World War II would have been a very different one. So all we have is each other, and all we have is each other wherever we are, and we can empower each other with our differences.
Mm. Yeah, it is very true, and it is very strong, and it's so admirable that you say this, but you thought it throughout, to a certain extent, throughout your entire life, right? So you described at a certain point that you're in Auschwitz and you look at the guards there and you said they are the prisoners.
Exactly. And I prayed for the guards because I thought that someday they're going to have to really look at their conscience and see how they were taught to hate. We're not born with hate. We're not born with judgment. I think it's very important for us to really realize love thy neighbor as thyself is very important, because self-love is self-care. It's not narcissistic.
Talking about the practical application of compassion,
Yes.
How does that manifest itself, would you say? So it's not only a feeling, it's also an action, right? Compassion is doing something.
Love is not what you feel, is what you do. Especially you, the man, you're going to really be a good role model to your children. Because children don't do what we say, they do what they see. And you're showing the children the way you treat their mother. So you bring breakfast to bed to your wife Sunday, and love is not what you feel, is what you do. And none of the positive thinking does any good unless it's followed with a positive action.
That's true. And sometimes we might tend to stay a little bit too much in the feeling rather than in the action. But many of us don't have a choice. I mean, not a choice on that level of, I can't just sit here and reflect of, what happened. I need to move on, right? Because it's about survival in some cases.
My daughter calls it Edithism, and I will give you a couple. One is, are you revolving or are you evolving? See, you have Jane Meadows, who at a very young age committed herself to go and take care of monkeys. And so it's not what you feel, it's what you do. Gave up her young life to take care of these precious creatures. And I think that you also is a very, very wonderful role model, just like Jane Goodall. I met her. She was here in La Jolla. If you come to my office, you see a picture of me and Jane together. So I really think she's a wonderful role model to us all.
Yes.
And that love is not what you feel, it's what you do.
What you do, 100%. I'm so curious, Dr. Eger, because I've read The Choice and the Gift very profoundly and made notes and whatever. How the writing of these books, how has it changed life for you, but also for your family? Because, we read about your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. I follow you on Instagram and I see beautiful stories. Has the publications of the book, because you're getting attention globally, has it changed life for them as well? And if so, could you talk a little bit about the impact for them?
I, for many, many years, was asked to write a book. And I would automatically to say, I have nothing to say. And then Philip Zimbardo from Stanford, who did the foreword in the book, and he said to me, Edie, the people who survived and are famous are all men. We need a female voice. So that's what happens, that the effect on my family was amazing. Because when I came to America, my daughter was ashamed of me because I spoke with an accent. When I went to school, she told me to shut up and not to raise my voice when I go to a parent meeting. And now, all of a sudden, I am sophisticated and I am really someone that they are so proud of. So I ask you to write a book, because my book is on the living room table of my great-grandchildren. And I have seven boys, no girl, 7 boys that I am so proud also of my grandchildren, that they are really doing everything to be proud of our inheritance of the people who were slaves. So I think I'm very proud of my ancestors because they never gave up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes, that's important, that we can always die. It's easier to die than to live. Life is not easy. We don't have any guarantee. We don't have any certainty, but there is probability. And that's what I had in Auschwitz. I had an opportunity to discover that actually I can, as you said before, look at the guards, that they were the prisoners, that they will have to face their conscience, that I am good and I'm free. And that's what, of course, has to do with two things. It has to do with revenge, or it has to be looked at as forgiving, because you can have revenge and you can have some satisfaction. You know, I told them off, but I think it's very temporary. I like the idea that forgiveness is not me forgiving you for what you did to me. I don't have any godly power, but that's why, to me, forgiveness is the one that gives me the real freedom. And so I hope that people are able to somehow realize that while you're angry at someone, you're the one who suffers. Because underneath of anger is a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. And so I like you to do two things. Think about your thinking, because what you think you create. And then pay attention what you're focusing on, because anything you focus on, it's very important to realize that anything you focus on has to be in alignment to get you closer to the goal that you set yourself. So there is nothing wasted here. And I hope that you will recognize that what you're doing now, you are looking at the same thing from a different perspective, from an opportunity. This is time out, COVID is time out, and it really brings you closer together. It really is important to see what your head is telling you. I call Auschwitz my cherished wound. I went back to Auschwitz, and I think it was very important for me to revisit the places, relive the experience, and then switch gears like in a car, that you need to really switch gears, and then you release the clutch. So what are you holding on to, and what are you willing to let go of? Because my definition of love is the ability to let go. What are you holding on to?
Yeah.
What are you willing? Willing is a very good word. I had to be willing to look at the guards and realizing that somehow whatever is going on, it's temporary and I can survive it. So you never give up, ever, never give up.
Yeah. There's so much in what you just said. So I'm just going to stick with what you said about forgiving. Because forgiving, it doesn't happen from one day to the other, right? Is that correct? It's a process. It's a day, every day again.
Exactly. I like your hair. Your hair is shiny and beautifully done, maybe just for today, but I really like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very handsome.
Thank
guy.
You. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you, Dr. Eger. I'm blushing now all of a sudden.
Are you a firstborn child?
No, I'm the second one. Yeah.
Middle children are peacemakers. Are you a peacemaker? You want everybody to get along?
Very much so.
Do you know how we call the babies in a family? Charming manipulators.
I can imagine. I have a younger brother. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He would fit that. Fit that. Yeah. But I mean, there's so much wisdom and so much to what you say. I would like to go back to what you kind of brought into long after Auschwitz, long after you fleeing Hungary and dealing with your patients. And there's one scene in The Choice, which I think is so profound, whereby you are talking to a patient and the patient has a gun, has a loaded gun, and brought it into your practice chamber. And your reaction is it's such a strong reaction. It's also a very strict reaction. I thought, I think if I were to imagine myself in such a situation, I would think, okay, I'm surrendering, but you did not at all. You became a little bit strict with the patient and you gave him the choice. What went through your mind at that moment? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I was facing a choice whether to send him next door to the psychiatrist that I worked with for 20 years. And I knew then he's going to be medicated. And when you're medicated with psychotic medication, you don't walk anymore. You kind of, you change. So I had a choice whether I'm going to choose to use the way I talk, and rather than sending him to the mental hospital, that would have happened that way. And I'm glad that I did that, because I helped the man to get a divorce and take charge of the children. And then he showed up in my office in a sports car. Guess what color was the car? Red. Red sports car. I did it. Yes. Yeah. No, he didn't want to kill anyone anymore. He became a very responsible father. And, it's, the more choices you have, the less you're going to feel like a victim. There is no victim without a victimizer. Yeah. See, when you're a victim, you're going to find a victimizer. And many times yesterday's victims become today's victimizer. So it's very important to see how you have a choice every morning to get up and know that life is just one day. Just one day. That in the evening, I am in the evening part of my life, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to happy asking not what life has given me, but in what way I could make people choices, because the more choices you have, the less you feel like a victim.
Yeah. And it's so strong that you chose basically to break the cycle of him becoming a victimizer, because you could have screamed and you could have, but you said, no, I'm going to break this cycle. Put the gun away. You kept the gun in your office. No mention of the gun, no prosecution for him. And he had a chance to start again, and he did, which is amazing and very, very accurately handled from you, but also so incredibly strong. And that was one of the scenes that I'm like, wow, that must take a very strong, powerful person to do that.
I want people to really find peace, and that's what you and I are doing. We too have a dream to have a human family, that you can be you, I can be I. You may speak English with a different accent than I definitely speak English, very different accent. But we do know how we are for something rather than against.
Yeah, that's very true and very well put. So as mentioned before, we are a podcast program that originates from a community of teachers, and you were elected also as Teacher of the Year. Yeah.
Yes.
So you And so you have quite some experience as an educator. Just before we recorded the interview, you also mentioned you're still involved. What would be your message to teachers who've had quite a difficult 2 years behind them because of COVID and so many losses and schools closed and job losses and whatever more?
I like to tell you that being a teacher is the best present you give to yourself, because you can change people's lives, that you can make a difference, that being a teacher is the most beautiful profession you could ever have. I like to be a guide, I call myself a guide, to see how you can turn tragedy into opportunity, how can turn darkness to light, how can you take any situation in life and turn it into an opportunity for growth. And so I am going to be 94 years old, September 29th, and you know what? I never felt younger than I do now, because I give up my need for other people's approval. If I come to you and I want to get to know you and you tell me you're too busy, it doesn't mean I was rejected. Rejection is just an English word that people make up to express a feeling when you don't get what you want. Everything has to do with expectation.
Yeah. So teachers should not feel rejected. They should continue doing what they're doing and definitely love themselves and be proud of the work that they're doing each and every day.
I think the teachers are the most beautiful people. Women, I don't say women that they are strong. I say to a woman, you are a woman of strength.
Yeah.
Because what I learned in Auschwitz, that love comes from inside out, which is my ballet master that told me that all the ecstasy comes in life from inside out, but I didn't know that word. I didn't know what it meant, ecstasy. And I'm telling you, my ballet master was right. Life is not from outside in. Don't wait someone to make you happy. Yeah. You're as happy as you choose. And when I'm happy, I have joy. I have joy. Yeah. I have a lot of joy right now watching you and knowing that I want to be remembered, that I truly have the young people now looking at me, hopefully, as a good role model.
You've written 2 mammoth books that has so much wisdom in there. You know, it should be obligatory reading in every school. That's what I would say for, next generations to know what forgiving is and what compassion is. That's my humble opinion. But whoever listens, I hope they will take me up on it.
Especially teenagers, because you're not a child anymore, but you're not an adult. It's kind of in between. It's very, very important for us to listen to our young people. Listening so important with compassion.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Eger. We're almost at the end of this interview, and again, I'm so grateful for your time. So we have 2 last questions that I ask every guest, but before I ask those, I just wanted to ask one more, because I've seen also so much joy coming out of the books, so much other creativity from a ballet in the Netherlands, because I am Dutch-Belgian, so with Igone de Jong and Pierre Bokma in the ballet, and they reenacted you as the ballerina of Auschwitz. What was that like for you when seeing that?
One of the most highlights of my life. I'll never ever forget it or overcome it. I come to terms with it. Yeah. I don't know what overcome is. I never overcome anything, and I never forget anything. Yeah. So don't run from the past. There is one thing we cannot change, is the past. And I think that it's time for each and every one of you to start writing your book.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
my book is translated
Over almost 40 languages, both books.
Wow.
almost 40 languages. Isn't that
Wow.
something?
Yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
unexpected. Yes.
Well,
So
you've set the standard so high, but congratulations. And many more people should buy it and read it. Again, I cannot reiterate that. Another nice celebration I saw is a handbag named Edith, which I thought was also such a nice tribute. And I'm sure there are many more things to celebrate you, and you deserve that
many.
in every step of the way. My two very last questions, Dr. Eger. Which book would you, other than your own books, would you recommend for others to read?
I think there is a very lovely book, and it's very short, written by a Mexican psychiatrist, and I think it's called The Four
Agreements.
The Four Agreement.
Okay,
And it's wonderful. It's Four Agreement because he tells us not to take things personally. He tells us not to assume things. He's a wonderful. And of course, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, because that's what really gave me the opportunity to really look at him as someone who became my mentor and my colleague. He was in his 70s, and he was climbing mountains in the Alps. He was taking flying lessons. You know, a very amazing man and role model. So those two books would be good.
Those two books. The Four Agreements and Man's Search for Meaning. And we will be sure to include those in our show notes so everyone can follow them.
One more book,
Okay.
any book by Alice Miller, a Swiss psychiatrist, yes.
Okay.
And she calls actually German education. She doesn't have anything positive to say about it because I got such an education. When the teacher came in, we had to get up. We had to sit down. We had to do everything what we are told and not to question authority. And I think the best thing children can do is question authority rather than blindly adhere to authority.
Yeah, that's also a very good one. So Alice Miller, we add to the list, and thank you for your recommendation. And then the very last question, Dr. Eger, let's turn the tables. This is your podcast program. Who would you like to interview? You can invite anyone. Who would it be? Who would be your number one guest?
I would like to have dinner with Eleanor Roosevelt because she was not jealous. She developed her own personality. She didn't have any time to compete with anyone. I think she would be a wonderful, and also the person that Oprah is really admiring, and her name is, she calls that woman her mother.
Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
Yes. She's a beautiful, wonderful poet and writer, and doesn't have time to complain. And I think that she's just a magnificent angel. Of course, I also met Mother Teresa, and I think that she was an amazing woman of strength.
Yeah.
I met her twice, and she was strong. She was strong, you know. She was in a hospital here. When she wanted to get up, she got up. When she wanted to pray, she prayed. She was not an easy patient in the hospital either.
Yeah.
So she was an amazing, wonderful angel. that I admire.
Wow. Lots of strong women are guests on your podcast program. So Eleanor Roosevelt, Maya Angelou, and Mother Teresa. That's very beautiful. Dr. Eger, for whatever it is worth, I would like to say I cannot imagine a world without the choice, the gift, and you in it. With living your life, you have genuinely raised the bar for all of us other human beings. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your wisdom. It's been a great honor having you for this interview. And I wish you also an excellent birthday next week.
Thank you very much. I am going to lock you in my heart. There is a special place there for you, and hoping this is just the beginning of a lifelong friendship.
Oh, thank you very so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Edith Eger. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you liked this episode of the Teach Pitch podcast, then it would mean the absolute world if you could share it with your friends and or give it a short review on your preferred podcast platform. The more you share your ideas about these interviews, the more people will find out about them. So do let us know what you think. We'd be very, very grateful.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our beautiful theme music, Le Grand Chase. This podcast was produced and edited by Natalie Piles. Project coordination by Inva Cheney.